As we go through today's webinar, if you have any questions, use the Q&A box. And just do me a favor here, just to confirm that you do hear me, go ahead and raise your hand with the, there we go, we got some hands raised. Okay, so my audio is working, so that's all good. So we'll go through, and again, as we go through today, just if you have any questions, go ahead and send them in using the Q&A box, because that's the one I can see while we're chatting here. Just because my screen's taken up by a whole bunch of other stuff. I don't have room for all the different chats and hands and things like that as we go through. So anyway, welcome. Thank you guys. Today we're talking about Nebula Cloud or Nebula Control Center, our cloud managed networking solution. So hopefully you're here today because you've heard about this and you haven't had a chance to play with it yourself. So we'll start going through it here. There we go. So basically, Nebula is cloud managed network management. The idea behind this is to save you time, save you money, make it easier to set up, deploy, and manage computer networks. So everything is centrally done through a single pane of glass. You're managing your switches, your access points, your security gateways, all through the same pane of glass. The hardware itself, in most cases, requires zero direct configuration. Instead, when you plug in the device, they reach out to the cloud, get their configuration from there, get their updates from there. There's no hardware controllers needed. There's no extra software needed. Everything is just done through a simple web interface. We're hosting everything ourselves. So the idea here again is to save you time and money. So you've got your normal thing here. You gotta buy your equipment, so that stays the same. Installation of equipment though can be done a lot less. Since there's no configuration required of the individual stuff itself, you basically just need to plug it in on site. So you don't need to send someone on site that's very technical. They just need to know how to figure out where the device goes, how to mount it in the rack, and how to plug it in. There's no need for monitoring equipment and things like that. The cloud can handle monitoring for you. Remote access is automatically done through the cloud, so there's no need to set up port forwarding, punch holes in the firewall, set up VPNs, anything like that. The cloud acts as your monitoring platform, so you don't need a separate piece of software. Now, having said that, if you've got something that you already use and you like, you're using Zabbix, you're using SolarWinds, all of our Nebula equipment still also supports SNMP, so you can still use those software to keep an eye on your networks. But if you don't have those, you don't need them. Log storage is in the cloud. We give you a week free storage with a free version of Nebula. If you upgrade to Pro Pack, you get a year's worth of logs stored in the cloud. And we always still export this via syslog and things like that. So you can always still have it export out to your own particular system that you like to use. Updating firmware and pushing out configurations is super simple. That's all done through the cloud. Wayne's got a question. I'll go ahead and answer that question, which is what do we do with a site that has a static IP? You can still set up the device manually. So if you have a situation where, for instance, your gateway, you need to set that WAN address statically, you can still log into the device before it's even reached the Nebula cloud, and we will allow you to configure static IP. Once it's been static IP plugged in and connects to the cloud, you can then modify that through the cloud as well as locally. But the rest of the configuration is all going to be done through the cloud. Same works with access points and switches, although most people these days should be using, a fixed DHCP where it assigns the IP based on MAC address. But if for some reason you're still using static IPs in your local network, you can do that with Nebula directly. And then if you're using our cloud-based system here, going back to this, we have Captive Portal, including the ability to do user and device management. That's all done through the cloud there for you. So some of the questions we get asked most often is, okay, it's a cloud solution, where is it hosted? So we are hosting using AWS. So AWS is probably one of the most reliable cloud-based solutions. We're not doing it ourselves. We realize we are not cloud experts. We are not data center experts. But Amazon does a pretty good job. Plenty of other companies out there, such as Netflix, use them. So we are using them. Another question we get has to do with privacy. So with Nebula, basically nothing is going into our cloud except the devices themselves periodically updating logs or periodically checking into the cloud to see if there's any updates that need to be applied. all of your local area traffic, all in general, all your local users, all of that stays on the local network. So we're not taking your traffic and funneling it to our cloud. Traffic is staying, basically behaves exactly how it did even if you weren't using the cloud. LAN traffic stays on the LAN, internet traffic goes out to the internet directly, does not go through our cloud. I know we've dealt with a certain other person's solution out there for cloud, and part of the problem we ran into is they were insisting that all traffic be funneled through their cloud before getting out to the internet, which was just an absolute nightmare. So we don't do that. So here's a list here of all of the certifications and compliances. The main ones here for North America that people are going to care about is PCI. So we are PCI compliant, and this can be used as part of a HIPAA-based solution. And then if you've got customers overseas or in different places, you can see here we've got all of those, CSA, GDRP, etc. So now we'll start going into a little bit more in depth on Nebula and how it works. So setup is done through the cloud. Now you can start setting up and configuring your customer site before you even order the hardware. You can create the account, you can set up the sites, and you can start configuring switches and gateways and things like that. At any point, once you get the hardware, you can simply use the mobile app, scan the QR code that's on the box or it's on the belly label of the product, assign it to your customer, and then ship the hardware out to your customer location to be plugged in. Once it gets plugged in, it'll update to the latest firmware and it'll download its configuration from the cloud. The entire process has been optimized to make things go super simple. So you can go from having no Nebula account to having an account, having a site set up with a wireless AP providing guest access. And I can do all of that from start to finish in about 5 minutes. We've got some basic default configs that are in there, which should get you internet running in most cases. And then we've got a number of wizards and stuff to help make setting things up simpler for you. And then the interface itself is a lot simpler than the typical Zycel interface. And just to nail here, there are no additional hardware or software required. So there's no cloud keys, there's no wireless LAN controllers, there's no CNA boxes, there's no software that needs to run on a virtual machine, none of that. Everything is going to be accessed for you through the cloud, through a web interface. You simply go to nebula.zycel.com, log in, and all of your customers and all of their sites and all of your hardware is visible there for you. We also have a mobile app, which will give you some snapshots of what's going on your customer locations. So the mobile app is primarily designed to help installers. So as we mentioned before, you can scan QR codes with the app to assign them to a customer so the device knows where it belongs and what configuration it needs. You can also snap photos as you install the hardware. Those are stored in the cloud. So if you have to send someone else on site down the road to service a certain piece of equipment, they can see a photo of where that equipment is. You can get a snapshot of what's going on the network and do some basic configuration through the app, as well as push notifications with ProPack Nebula. So Nebula's got built-in guest access, whether we're talking about just giving access to visiting customers or salespeople as they come to an office, to being able to provide guest access at small hotels, coffee shops, restaurants, things like that. We're really flexible with how we do the captive portal. We've got a way of doing captive portal, so even if you're not using VLANs for some reason, you can still isolate that guest network from the regular network. We can do terms of service agreement. We can have people log in with a username and password. We can have them register their own username and password. We can have them log in with Facebook. Really flexible. The landing page itself is super customizable. We've got some basic edits you can do through the cloud, or you can download the HTML and CSS files, edit them to your heart's content, and then re-upload them to Nebula for us to host. If you need something even fancier than that, we can always have Nebula point the captive portal login page to a page that you host, which captures whatever information you need or want. On the wireless side of things, we offer what's called Smart Mesh. So Smart Mesh basically allows the APs to automatically create their own mesh if for some reason their wired connection goes down, or if you never plan to have a wired connection for certain APs, those APs will automatically switch into mesh mode, find other APs, and create a mesh with them until they find an AP that does have a backhaul. That'll automatically self-heal if status changes over time. We support WPA2, and now with Wi-Fi 6 APs, Wi-Fi or WPA3 security, including the WPA Enterprise. And we support all the major standards when it comes to roaming assistance, fast roaming, so 802.R, K, and V, those are all there for you. On the switch side of things, we've got our standard Zycel Intelligent PoE, which monitors the connected devices to see what the real power demands are of those devices and then frees up your PoE budget so you can connect more devices onto the same switch with the same power budget than you could otherwise. Number of different network security things such as ACL rules, VLAN configuration guard, loop guard, the ability to make sure someone doesn't plug in their own DHCP server on your network, IGMP snooping, and then all the Nebula switches are virtually stacked so you can configure ports across multiple switches simultaneously. So configuration changes are done OTA, over the air. Basically, you make the configurations to your site, you hit save, and within about 2 minutes, those devices will reach out to the cloud, get their new configuration, and apply it for you. Firmware updates are also handled the same way. We'll send you an email alert letting you know there's new firmware available, and we will automatically schedule a date and time for that firmware to be applied. However, you can always go in, set your own schedule as to when you want stuff updated. So for instance, if you want it to update every Monday at 3 a.m., you can do that. You can also set configurations based on the type of device or the schedule based on the type of device. And you can set the schedule based on individual devices as well. So really flexible with how that's all done. But it's designed primarily to make it so you don't have to do anything manually. It just gets done in the background for you automatically. On the security gateway side of things, we make it really easy to do site-to-site VPNs. Simply select all the sites in Nebula you want to VPN together, choose the topology, and we'll handle everything else for you on the back end. So Nebula was designed from the ground up with the idea that you have multiple customers, those customers may have multiple sites. So we've optimized Nebula to make it really easy to keep an eye on your customers and see what's going on. So when you get in here, we have what we call our MSP view. It gives you a snapshot of all of your customers, whether they're using the free or the paid version of Nebula. If they're using the paid version, when their license expires, letting you know how many sites they have, how many devices are online, offline, having issues. Once you choose your customer, we'll then take you here to another view where we get to see if that customer has multiple sites, we can see all of those sites. You can see we've got Google Maps integration, so you can see where they are visually on a map if you choose to do that. And again, giving you a snapshot. And then once you drill down to a specific site, we take you here to this landing page, or dashboard, I guess it should be the term I have to use here. So you can see here up at the top, we allow you to group your customers together. And then you can quickly, using the pull down menu, jump between groups. Jump between your customers, we call them organizations in Nebula, or jump between sites, really easy, so you can quickly get between them. This dashboard here can show you various amounts of information, such as how many wireless users are online, PoE usage versus budget, etc. And this is customizable, which tiles go here, and we'll be adding more tiles in the future. If you're using our Nebula gateways, we can break down traffic for you and let you know which applications are using the traffic on your network, as well as which users. And then from here, this is where you do all of your configurations. So you can drill down further in or go into the configuration screens to start editing your configs. So this is showing us here as we click onto our Wi-Fi view. We'll show you all the different devices that have been connecting to your Wi-Fi network, whether they're currently online or not, the network description of the device, which AP they're connected to, the SSID they're connected to, security level, their MAC address, signal strength, speed of their connection. And again, this is all customizable, so we can go in there and choose which information you want to see or don't want to see. We can also show you network bandwidth utilization over time, so you can see when things are spiking. This is showing us here the PoE report, showing you how PoE power consumption is being used, which ports are getting the most usage. And here's our switch screen. You can see here, you can easily see which switch ports have something plugged in, whether they have PoE or not, and what speed they are. We've got a number of tools here to do some troubleshooting, as well as, again, visual charts showing you utilization over time. So for the majority of everything I've talked about here, except for when I specifically said it requires the Pro Pack, everything here is free. So the free version of Nebula Unlike some of our competition, there is no limit to the number of customers you can manage through Nebula. There is no limit to the number of devices you can manage through the free version of Nebula. So Sam sent in a question. Just a reminder, guys, for those of you that joined us late, please use the Q&A to send those questions. It makes it easier for me to see them. But Sam, so your question is, does Nebula support devices from other manufacturers? So Nebula management is just specifically for Nebula compatible devices. Now, having said that, not everything on your network needs to be Nebula. So we still play fine with everybody else. It's just you won't be able to use Nebula to manage those devices, but you'll still be able to see that they're plugged in on the network. You should still be able to see if, you know, if it's a PoE phone or something like that, to see if it's still plugged in. Things like that you can still see through Nebula, but actual management would just be done the traditional way. So again, Nebula is free, and it covers quite a few of covers basically all of our access points, covers dedicated series of switches, as well as our 1920 and 1930 series switches, and also covers our Nebula security gateways. So when you're looking at our products, you'll see some products flagged as Nebula Flex. So what does that mean? So Nebula Flex are products that can be managed with Nebula, but don't have to be. So you can switch them back and forth between Nebula mode and traditional management mode. On the APs, you will also see some flagged as Nebula Flex Pro. So Nebula Flex Pro APs can be managed with Nebula. They can be managed standalone, or they can be managed through a wireless LAN controller. Nebula Flex Pro products also include 1 year of Pro Pack automatically out of the box. So now we'll talk a little bit about licenses and stuff that does cost you extra money. So the main one you're going to see people talking about is our Professional Pack. So Nebula Professional Pack unlocks a number of features that are primarily designed at increased reporting, increased alerts, things like that. So when you upgrade to the Pro Pack, all of the log information is stored for a year in the cloud. We give you a year's worth of audit log, so we will track every configuration change, what the change was, who made that change, so you can always go back and find out who made a change. So you can find out, you know, why did you do this, right? You've always come into that, you log in, you're like, well, why did we do that? Or you're troubleshooting a problem. Well, you know, did this change affect it? Well, let's see. Wait, that change was made 6 months ago, so no, that's not the cause of our issue. It gets you automatic push alerts. It gets you the ability to export data, backup data off the cloud. It gives you the ability to clone existing sites or existing customers. It gives you access to what are called templates. So we give you an automatic topology view. So we'll automatically create this view showing you which devices on your network are plugged into which other devices to help you with troubleshooting. Whoops. ProPack also on the switches opens up more modular bandwidth control on a per port basis. If you're doing IPTV, such as in a hotel, it gives you advanced IPTV controls and reports. It gives you a more detailed wireless health report where we can track over time and let you know which of your wireless devices or wireless users are having issues, when they're having those issues, to help give you a proactive approach to figuring out where you may need to solve some issues, such as adding another access point or changing channels around, or maybe you've just got one of your users just has a really, crappy Wi-Fi connection built into their laptop or whatever. So I was talking about before, we have the ability here with the ProPack to have configuration templates. So those will allow you to change multiple settings across multiple devices, across multiple sites really easily by just saying, hey, it's time to change the security password, change it, apply it to all your sites. Gives you the ability to clone a number of settings, clone sites, clone organizations, and do offline backup. And then it gives you access to what's called Facebook Wi-Fi. So the free version of Nebula lets you use Facebook login for your captive portal. Facebook has a more advanced solution called Facebook Wi-Fi. So you need ProPack if you want to use Facebook Wi-Fi. Basically, it's a way of providing guest Wi-Fi at a location that requires people to essentially check into your business before they get out onto the internet. And by checking in, not only does it hopefully allow them to share and tell people they're at your business, it allows Facebook to capture more information and share that information demographics-wise with you. So the other license solution we have is our NSS, Nebula Security Solutions licenses. So this is just for the NSG gateways, and these are the UTM features that the security gateway offers. So that's your antivirus, your content filtering, your application intelligence, your IDP, and some additional reports. So every NSG gateway comes with 1 year of this automatically out of the box. And then you buy licenses on an annual basis going forward. So you can see here, we can give you detailed reports breaking down not just users, but the actual applications being used. We allow you to set up firewall policy rules based on individual applications. We give you detailed reporting of what's been going on. In this case, this is, I believe, the content filtering view. And these can automatically be emailed to you or automatically emailed to your customer, and you can add your logo to those emails. Here's the antivirus report. Again, same thing. This can all be set up to be emailed out. So to try to summarize all of that, the core version of Nebula is free. We also offer the Pro Pack, which unlocks a number of extra things there, particularly reports and things like that, extra logging information. Pro Pack is available as an annual license or as a perpetual lifetime license. So if you know you want these features and you're going to keep using Nebula for a few years, it's going to be cheaper to go with the lifetime option. View the lifetime option as sort of like a site license. You will buy a number of seats. I'm going to manage X number of APs, X number of switches, etc. So that number of seats will always be there. So if you go to upgrade equipment or swap out a defective piece in the future, you don't have to worry about transferring licenses from device to device. You simply remove the device out of Nebula and add in the new device, and it'll automatically take that seat for you. If you're going with annual licenses and you don't renew, at the end of that time period, it simply falls back to the free version of Nebula. So you're never getting locked out of your hardware. You're never losing the ability to configure your devices with Nebula. And then the security pack, which is independent of the other stuff here. So quick rundown of devices. Here's our Nebula security gateways, currently the NSG 500 through 300. All come with 1 year of ProPack and 1 year of the security services license out of the box. Primary difference between these things, and just in general with our security gateways, when you're looking and trying to figure out which one you need, the main difference is the feature set's going to remain the same pretty much identically between each different model. What's going to be different is the number of ports you have and just how powerful that gateway is, what sort of bandwidth it can support, how many sessions it can support. So that's going to be the main thing you're looking at is, okay, how fast is my internet connection? Am I going to be using these UTM services? Okay, then buy based on that by looking at the data sheet and seeing what the throughput level needs to be to support that. Switch side of things, we've got the dedicated NSW series of switches that only work with Nebula. Those come with 1 year of ProPack out of the box. And then our GS 1920s and 1930 switches, those are all Nebula Flex, so they can work with Nebula or standalone. And later this year, the 1350 series switches will also be added to this. I think there's one other switch that's not on here, 3800 maybe. We've got another switch recently just added Nebula support. And then on APs, it's messy. Reach out to your salesperson. They can give you a cheat sheet that you can print out or keep on your computer to reference. That's basically what you see here. Short version is all of our APs now support Smart Mesh. All but one of our APs supports Nebula Control Center now, and then some models are also support standalone or controller operation. All the NAP series APs come with 3 year of ProPack out of the box. And then the 5000 series and higher all come with 1 year of ProPack out of the box. And the 1100 series don't come with any Pro Pack bundled in. So if any of this sounds interesting to you, you can go to nebula.zycel.com. You will see a username and password published on the website there, or webpage. Just log in with those credentials, and we've got a 3 hotels set up that you can go in and play around with Nebula and get a feel for what's in there for you. Also, as long as you're a member of our partner program and qualify for that, you can get up to a 60-day demo kit. With AP, switch, and gateway if you need it, so you can play around with those yourselves in your office or stick them at a customer location. And with that, that concludes today's presentation. If any questions, send them in using the Q&A box. I will be happy to answer those for you. My email's there on the screen. It's seanr@zycel.com. So if you have any questions that you'd like to ask me offline or some feedback you'd like to give me, feel free to send it there. Also, to let you guys know, we do have a online forum. I think the URL is just forum.zycel.com. So that's a place for users to be able to talk to each other, help each other out. But more importantly, and unlike some of our competition, our R&D and our product management team keeps an eye on those forums and does respond to stuff. So if you've got some feedback, that's a great place to post it. If you've got some questions that don't need immediate answers, you can always post them on there. And somebody will get back to you in most cases. But that's a great way to reach out to the people in our HQ. So I'll take a look at some of the questions we've got here. So James is asking, any plans to be able to monitor or configure USG and VPN firewalls in Nebula? So the answer to that is not with any of the current models. There are plans for a new series of products called ATP Flex, I believe. And those will be able to be managed through Nebula. So going forward, the idea is to reduce the number of models of product we offer. Obviously, on the security side of things, it's a mess with NSGs, USGs, Zywall VPNs, ATPs. So the idea is to try to consolidate the hardware so we have less hardware out there and make stuff more available just as a license. So you need hotspot management, buy a license. You need UTM, you buy the license. You want Nebula, there may be a license, may not be, I don't know, to switch over to management support. So those should be coming out in the near future. When they'll be able to be managed with Nebula, that's something that's planned for later. It just depends how long it takes to port the features over to it. One of the big challenges we have here is Nebula is designed to be simple and easy to set up. And anybody that's used our USG or an ATP knows that those things are really powerful, but also really complex. So that's been the balancing act, is how do we offer advanced features but keep the interface simple enough that it makes sense from a cloud perspective and with our mission for Nebula. That is something also to add there. One thing that was just added to Nebula just recently, and it may only be a Pro Pack feature, I can't remember off the top of my head, is we have opened up CLI access to most products. So you can use Nebula and you can still get direct CLI access to individual devices that way. So for those of you that are old school and like the CLI, you can now do that with Nebula. Dave says, I assume there's no standard price list for Nebula. So Nebula, I'm guessing you're talking about the Pro Pack. Nebula is pretty straightforward. There's basically one license for access points, one license for switches, one license for security gateways. So that makes it really simple there. You know, I've got 15 APs, you just buy 15 of the AP license, doesn't matter the model, same with switches, etc. The other thing we do with licenses, if you're using Pro Pack, is everything code terminates. So when you add the licenses on there, they get converted into points and are distributed across the entire organization. So that way everything expires on the same date. You don't end up in that situation where some products are expiring today, some products are expiring 3 months in the future, because those were added after the initial deployment. Nebula automatically co-terminates everything. So I hope that was what you were asking. So that's the answer for that. I think the security UTM licenses, those do vary based on the individual model of NSG gateway. And that's because our costs to the people we license those, what's the term I'm looking for, that we get these signatures from charge us based on the capability of the device. So those of you that aren't familiar with it, I don't have the slide in this, but our security services are provided by different partners. I believe antivirus on Nebula is provided by Bitdefender, content filtering by Siren, etc. So I don't see any other questions. So thanks guys for joining us. We've got some more webinars coming up next week. I am doing, let's see, I think next Thursday, I am doing a encore presentation on our Wi-Fi 6 AP, the WAC 650S, which is going to be our Wi-Fi 6 AP going forward. And then hopefully in June, I'll be able to launch the rest of our more affordable Wi-Fi 6 AP. So we'll have a presentation for those once those have been received here in the US and skewed up a distribution. I think May 5th, Cinco de Mayo, is that a Thursday? If it is, I think I am doing a presentation there, which is just a general wireless thing. As we saw from that wireless slide, we've got a ton of different APs. So we've put together sort of a presentation to go over those and help you try to figure out, some rules of thumb for determining which AP you should buy for which of your customers to join that. I know Tri's got some webinars coming up. And again, email me offline with any questions or any suggestions for other topics you'd like to see us cover in the future. Any feedback on today's presentation for anything that makes that a little bit healthier for you, makes it easier, makes these more valuable for you. Wayne's got a question here. So Wayne, today's webinar is recorded. It will be posted to our Zycel Channel North America YouTube page. I believe there's links somewhere from our website to that as well. And if you just prefer actual slides, reach out to your salesperson. So for most of you, that's going to be Jacob or Ivan. For a few of you, that may be Tri, and they can send you over a PDF version of these PowerPoint slides for you. Or just email me, and I can always send it over to you as well. But in general, we like to funnel you guys through the sales guys so they know what's going on, what your needs are. But thanks for joining us, guys. Anything else, just email me.